Now, I went to my butcher today, one of our local butchers, very good meats, and I always look at the beef stuff. And he said, you know what, if you don't know what to take, there's that pig we just broken down today, and here's some nice pork chop. And I realized, you know what, I actually like pork chops, and look at that. This is what I've got, freshly cut from today. And I thought to myself, okay, let's find an easy home cooking recipe with pork chop. And the one I found was called pork chop with cheese. Actually, pork chop that can be pan fried or grilled, then cover with a mixture and with cream, mustard again, and cheese, and broil in the oven. I mean, do you think that's gonna work? I don't know, but I'm curious, so let's do it. In French, that recipe is called a côte de porc au gruyère, which are pork chops with gruyère cheese. In France, when we mention gruyère, it usually refers to as the classic Emmental, which is a type of French cheese that is not super tasty, but it is used by a lot of people at home. What I prefer to use is the real gruyère from Switzerland that is very tasty and very stringy. It melts, it crisps up very well when you put it under a broiler, and this is what I'm going to be using here. For the ingredients for that recipe, it's very simple. You're going to have a thick type of cream, the gruyère cheese, and then mustard, salt and pepper for the chops, and that's it. You can cook the chop two ways. First option, you can pan fry them and then transfer them to a baking dish and do the broiling with the mixture. Or what I'm going to do here, for something simple, I'm going to use a grill. I'm going to grill the pork chop. Okay, and when we're done, I'm just going to coat with the mixture and put it straight into the oven. It's going to be way easier. I'm only doing one chop on here for the demonstration, but I will give you all the details on the recipe for 4 people. For the pork chop, make sure they're out of the fridge at least 10-15 minutes before to avoid any cold spots. And if, like me, you've got the pork rind still attached, you don't want to cook this, okay? So I've cut it and I'm gonna discard it, and that's it for the mise en place. We're now ready to start. Let's go on the grill. So here we are. That's the pan I'm gonna be using, okay? It's a stove grill, cast iron, so it's good for searing and stuff like that. And it's gonna be really adequate to cook the chops. Then it can go into the oven and it can go on the table. So it's got multi-purpose. For the chops, salt and pepper was the original recommendation for the recipe. Because I'm grilling, I'm not going to put any pepper because it's going to burn and it's going to get a little bit bitter. So you run the chances of having this. So you're just going to add salt on either side. And instead of putting oil in my pan, I usually use a brush. And I'm brushing the meat on all sides like this with oil. So make sure you use a high smoke point oil, something like grapeseed oil, which is great, before we grill. For the grill, I'm not going to go for a super high temperature like we do for steak sometimes, because pork needs to cook for quite a bit. So I'm going to keep it on a medium high, and we're going to take our time to cook the meat. And you see I'm seeing some smoke over here, so I'm going to grab my chop and we're going to start. All right, let's pick it up. Now, if you want to be organized, because we're going to have to use the grill, you can start your grill now, but it depends on how your oven perform. It may be an instant action, you put it on and boom, you get a grill. Mine can be a bit slow, so I'm going to put it on now and I'm going to cook this for a good 10 to 12 minutes. But the best is to check the internal temperature with a food thermometer. Usually about 65 Celsius, put the equivalent Fahrenheit, is good, okay? But we want a nice coloring all over the chops. Now, I did mention about the tools I was using. More and more when I'm cooking meat, having a timer like this to know roughly where you're at is good, and that's the food thermometer that we're going to plant, and it's going to give you the exact temperature of your meat. These are super useful tools when you're making meat. And that's it. The time is off. If you want to go by time, I'm doing 10 to 12 minutes, and I'm going to reserve this on a plate and let it rest while we make the mixture. I'm also going to put a bit of cold water to cool it down before we put that in the oven. Now, for the mixture we're going to put on top, you can use a whisk. I've got a spatula as well. You know what, we can start, let's start with a spatula, see what happens. So you see the cream is very thick here. And then I'm going to mix this with the mustard. Up. And mix the whole lot well. Now, since we've started that series with the home cooking dishes, I've realized how much mustard is used. In the restaurant style, it's like stock, and here's like mustard all the time. And cheese as well. So we've got all the cheese, and then we mix everything. So the result, what you want to have is something that is not liquid, because it needs to stick to the chop. If it's runny and everything like this, it's not going to work. So it is important to have that thick cream. And don't skim on the cheese. If there's something with cheese, you know, the worst thing is not to have enough cheese. So don't be scared. I'm gonna add a bit more, I think. The next step is to coat. Now, I think I may overdid the cheese because the mixture became suddenly very stiff. But all what it is, okay, you take a fork or something, let me get my spatula, is to coat one side of the chop with plenty of that cheesy, mustardy mixture, okay? So do your best and you put it kind of everywhere because this is gonna have to melt and crisp up under the broiler. I have now transferred my chop back onto my griddle on here, and I'm gonna add the bit of black pepper that was needed. And to be extra naughty, I'm gonna add some more cheese to make sure it's really crisp up because it's a bit sad without the cheese on top. I just love cheese. I'm a cheesy man. Now we're done. I've got no idea how this thing is gonna look after it's in the broiler. It says 5 minutes. So when you put this on the grill, don't put this at the very, very, very top of the oven. Just go one notch down. Otherwise that's gonna burn to a crisp, okay? 5 minutes, we're gonna broil it straight and then we're gonna dig in. This is just out of the oven, and the first thing I can say is that I was wrong with the grill. Home appliances, if you don't have this thing on the top of the grill, they just don't perform, it doesn't crisp up. I had to put this at the last 2 minutes at the very top to get this color. But when I'm looking at this chop, I'm like, this is a bit of like a pretty indulgent, and what kind of idea was this? Let me take a pork chop that's very nice and fat and add some more cream and cheese on top with a bit of mustard. Interesting, to be honest, to say the least. So I've got my cutlery here, and that's how it looks like. So usually it's a baking dish. You see the problem? Using that grill, it works, but you see it, temperature, actually, maybe. I love these little crispy bits. Can I start with this? Let's see the cheese. Oh yeah, this is my best part. Okay. Okay, tell me more. Little chop. It's cooked. And I can feel the mustard in the background. So let's just try a little piece like that. Not bad. I'm surprised because actually it goes, you know, it goes pretty well. I mean, the cheese with the meat, I would not have thought about that. Like a piece of pork grilled like this, bathing in cheese and cheese crust, actually works pretty well. Let me have another bite. Look at this. Nice. Okay. Conclusion, let's go. You know what I would say is that really there's so much to learn with cooking. It doesn't matter if you go like in the high end or the very simple. Things like this always amaze me because I think that recipe, I did not expect anything special. I was not even sure it's going to go together. But you know what? It does add something really quite special to your simple pork chop that you do all the time. And if you were to bake 2 or 3 or 4 of these as a family meal, cover with tons of cheese and serve this with some nice macaroni on the side or sauté potatoes, you know what? With a beer on the side or something, that would be absolutely brilliant, I'm telling you. And that completes our weekly video on that series on the French home cooking, and we're doing more discoveries. So you've been many to say that you like this series. We're going to keep on going and I'm having so much fun. I'd like to wish you bon appetit if you try this, and please jump into the comment section. Tell me what you think if you try that recipe, because I was surprised and maybe you're going to be as well. I will be back next week, of course, with another video. And in the meantime, if you want to share your pictures, use the hashtag French Cook Academy on Instagram. You can support us on Patreon. And don't forget, the online culinary school is still there if you want to learn all the intricacy of French cooking. Take care all. See you next week. Bye-bye.